September 1944, Lorraine countryside, Panzer Brigade 113 versus elements of 4th Armored Division, Colonel Bruce C. Clark and Oberst Erich Freiherr von Seckendorf, commanding opposing forces, maximum road speed 55 miles per hour. Morning fog lay thick across the gentle hills east of Arracourt. About 40 Panthers and a number of Panzer IVs of freshly formed Panzer Brigade 113 advanced westward in 2 columns at 15 miles per hour. German commanders expected only cautious Shermans moving at 25 miles per hour on roads. At 9:30, the lead Panthers reached a low ridge south of Les Ayes and saw grey shapes 3,000 yards away. M18 Hellcats of the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion accelerated across open fields at over 20 miles per hour off-road. They swung wide around both flanks, halted in shallow depressions, fired high-velocity 76mm rounds, then reversed out before German turrets completed traversal. Several Panthers burned within the first minutes. Brigade headquarters demanded explanations that never arrived. American voices on the radio remained calm, while German frequency filled with urgent questions. By noon, patches of fog lifted and revealed Hellcats already repositioned on new firing lines. The Germans had prepared for deliberate frontal combat and instead faced vehicles that struck at 55 miles per hour on roads and vanished across country before effective reply became possible. Late summer 1944, Western Front. United States Third Army versus German 5th Panzer Army Lieutenant General George S. Patton opposing General Hasso von Manteuffel, operational radius limited by fuel delivery under 100 miles per day. American tank destroyer doctrine began in 1941, when exercises showed medium tanks struggled against enemy armor. The Army created a separate branch to hunt tanks with fast vehicles carrying powerful guns and thin armor. By 1944, the M18 Hellcat became the ultimate expression of that concept. 37,000 pounds total weight allowed the Continental radial engine of 350 horsepower to push the vehicle to 55 miles per hour on roads and sustain over 20 miles per hour off-road. Designers accepted thin armor between about 5 and 25 millimeters because protection mattered less than the ability to reach the enemy flank first. Independent tank destroyer battalions received orders to seek strike and displace immediately. The doctrine assumed German tanks would advance slowly in dense formations that exposed sides and rear to rapid exploitation. Meanwhile, the strategic situation turned desperate for Germany. Normandy collapsed in August, and Allied armies raced eastward. Patton's Third Army covered 400 miles in 2 weeks until supply columns could no longer deliver enough gasoline. Hitler demanded immediate counterattacks before Americans reached the West Wall fortifications. He formed a series of new panzer brigades numbered from 101 to 113 by stripping training schools of instructors and cadets. Each brigade received roughly 90 tanks split between Panthers and Panzer IVs, plus half-tracks for Panzer Grenadiers. Panzer Brigade 113 left Grafenwöhr on rail transport and arrived in Lorraine with brand new vehicles and crews who knew individual tactics but lacked combat experience together. Fuel remained the critical constraint. Each Panther consumed 250 gallons per 100 miles on roads and far more across country. German quartermasters promised priority delivery, yet depots stood empty east of the Rhine. Patton needed to keep momentum or watch the front solidify for winter. His 4th Armored Division spearheaded the advance toward Nancy and the Sarre River. Combat Command A under Colonel Bruce C. Clark received the mission to seize Arracourt and surrounding ridges. Intelligence reported new German units arriving, but estimated only weak security forces. The flat tank country around Lunéville offered perfect ground for mobile warfare, with long sightlines and firm soil despite autumn rain. Both sides committed their last fresh armoured reserves to this forgotten corner of Lorraine. American supply lines stretched 300 miles from Normandy beaches, while German reinforcements travelled by rail from central Germany. Whoever controlled the road network around Arracourt would decide whether Third Army continued east or stalled until spring. The clash became inevitable when Panzer Brigade 113 received orders to attack westward on 18 September and retake Lunéville. Simultaneously, Combat Command A pushed northeast to secure the same terrain. Fog and broken communications prevented either side from grasping the full strength opposite. German commanders believed they faced only scattered Shermans and placed absolute faith in the superior range and penetration of their 88 and 75mm guns. American planners trusted speed and combined arms to offset thinner armor. The coming battle would test whether doctrine written in 1941 still worked against late-war German equipment handled by desperate men. Maximum road speed, 55 miles per hour, now carried the weight of an entire offensive timetable. M18 gun motor carriage technical layout independent tank destroyer battalions designed maximum road speed 55 miles per hour. The Hellcat weighed 18 tons, combat loaded, and carried the same 76mm M1A1 gun fitted to later Sherman variants. Muzzle velocity reached 2,600 feet per second, with armor-piercing ammunition, and penetrated 100mm homogeneous plate at 1,000 yards when striking perpendicular. Armor bases stood between about 5 and 25mm on hull and turret surfaces. Rifle-caliber bullets sometimes sparked off the hull, yet 37mm rounds punched straight through. Crew sat completely exposed in the open turret for vision and quick escape if the vehicle caught fire. A Continental R975 radial engine, originally built for aircraft, produced 350 horsepower at 2,400 revolutions per minute. The 3-speed Torque-matic automatic transmission eliminated clutch wear during violent cross-country dashes. Tracks used rubber-bushed pins and rode on torsion bars that gave smooth travel at high speed. Ground pressure remained under 9 pounds per square inch, so the vehicle crossed soft fields without bogging where heavier German tanks sank. Each tank destroyer battalion contained 3 companies of 12 M18 each, plus reconnaissance and pioneer platoons. Commanders received freedom to attach companies to divisions or hold them in reserve for immediate counter-attack against penetration. Doctrine forbade Hellcats from holding ground or trading shots turret to turret. Standard procedure required the platoon leader to find hull-down positions 1,500 to 2,000 yards from the enemy, fire 6 to 8 rounds, then displace 500 yards laterally before German gunners found range. Speed made the tactic possible. From standstill, the Hellcat reached 30 miles per hour in 12 seconds on level ground. German practice differed completely. Panther battalions trained to advance in wedge formation and engage at maximum range with the long 75mm Quebel K-42. Crew drills emphasized accurate first-shot hits while remaining buttoned for protection. Turret traverse took 20 seconds for 90 degrees under hydraulic power and far longer by hand crank. A Panther needed almost 30 seconds to turn 180 degrees and face a new threat from the flank. The Tiger carried even thicker armor and slower acceleration. German commanders accepted low tactical mobility because frontal protection and gun performance won most engagements in Russia and Normandy when ammunition lasted. Fuel shortage now forced shorter moves and static defense more often than anyone admitted. The M18 inverted every assumption. Where German tanks sought decisive battle on their terms, the Hellcat refused contact unless conditions favored rapid strike and withdrawal. American crews learned to read terrain folds that hid movement at 40 miles per hour and to fire from unexpected angles. The enemy could not answer quickly. Turret traversed 360 degrees in about 24 seconds. September 1944, Arracourt, 704th, Tank Destroyer Battalion against Panzer Brigade, 113 maximum road speed, 55 miles per hour sustained. A Hellcat commander near Les remembered. The open turret gave perfect vision until the first tracers cracked past his ears. From the commander seat he saw dust columns rise 3 miles away while German crews still buttoned inside steel. His driver pushed across stubble fields with the Continental turning at 2,400 revolutions per minute. The vehicle leapt small ditches, yet kept all tracks on the ground. When they stopped to fire, the gunner acquired the target before the hull stopped rocking. 8 seconds later they reversed behind the rise and were gone. On the other side, a Panther officer watched his lead tank take a side hit at 1,800 yards. The turret was still turning when the second round struck the same tank and set off ammunition. No one inside escaped. He ordered his driver to swing left, but brigade frequency repeated the same command: maintain formation and advance west. Fuel gauges already showed less than 1/4 full. Another Hellcat appeared briefly on the right flank, fired 3 rounds and vanished before the long 75mm gun aligned. Survivors later wrote that the enemy fought like cavalry of the old war, never standing to receive a charge. 2 months later, at Noville, a Hellcat platoon covered 30 miles overnight along icy roads to reach the village before dawn. Engines ran the entire distance at around 40 miles per hour without overheating. They deployed on the forward slope just as the first German column appeared below. The commander called corrections, while the gunner traversed by hand and sent the first round downrange in under 6 seconds from a dead stop. German tanks tried to deploy, yet every time a Panther turned to face one Hellcat, another fired from the opposite side. Drivers kept engines idling so the vehicles could leap sideways the moment return fire came close. One German officer in the same column counted several tanks disabled in minutes. He saw one M18 take a direct hit from an 88mm gun and simply disintegrate, yet the crew rolled clear before flames reached the rack. The speed that made the Hellcat fragile also made it impossible to corner. When panzers tried to close the distance, the Americans retreated at over 20 miles per hour across country and reappeared somewhere else. The Germans possessed superior guns and armor, yet could not force the kind of deliberate firefight their training required. Hellcat crews rarely remained in one firing position for more than a minute. 18 to 29 September 1944, Arracourt Sector, 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion with Combat Command A, 4th Armoured Division, against Panzer Brigades, 111 and 100. 13. Maximum road speed, 55 miles per hour sustained. Over 11 days of almost constant fighting, the American Hellcat Battalion and supporting armour claimed about 39 German tanks, destroyed or abandoned for 4. M18 lost to enemy fire, and 3 damaged. Most German losses came from side or rear shots delivered at ranges between 1,000 and 2,000 yards. United States reports credited the 704th with these results. German after-action reports admitted heavy losses in Panthers and Panzer IVs from the 2 brigades, with many others damaged beyond field repair. Fog and rain limited Allied air support for the first week, yet Hellcats still found open flanks because German columns advanced along predictable roads at under 15 miles per hour. German reconnaissance remained almost blind. Divisional Aufklärungsdetachments had been destroyed earlier, and the new brigades possessed no organic armoured car companies. American reconnaissance platoons in light tanks and jeeps roamed 20 miles ahead and reported every move. Whenever Panthers tried to deploy off roads, they bogged in soft ground or ran dry after 25 miles. Hellcat companies simply drove around the stalled formations on secondary tracks and struck from 3 sides. By 25 September, Panzer Brigade 113 ceased to exist as a fighting force, with only 11 tanks still running. The pattern repeated in December at Noville and along the Bastogne perimeter. Long night marches of 40 to 60 miles brought fresh Hellcat platoons into blocking positions hours before German spearheads arrived. Speed again decided the outcome. A single company of the 705th held the northern road for 3 days, while claiming more than 20 enemy tanks against a small number of M18 lost. German commanders repeatedly reported fast American tank destroyers that refused frontal engagement and disappeared whenever pressure increased. Overall wartime record for the M18 showed about 498 enemy tanks and assault guns destroyed in Europe for around 216. Hellcats lost in all causes, with a kill-to-loss ratio of roughly 2.3 to 1 in the European theatre. German fuel shortages and mechanical breakdowns multiplied the effect. A Panther, immobilized by empty tanks, became an easy target for a vehicle that could still travel about 100 miles on one fill. Maximum road speed 55 miles per hour sustained. September 1944 to January 1945. Lorraine and Ardennes Panzer Brigade, 113 remnants, and 5th Panzer Army versus 3rd Army Tank Destroyer Battalions, turning point speed 55 miles per hour sustained German officers had entered the campaign, believing American armor consisted only of slow Shermans that died quickly in frontal combat. After the first week at Arracourt, that belief lay in smoking ruins beside the Nancy Road. Surviving Panther commanders now spoke of grey hornets that appeared without warning, struck the flank, and vanished before turrets turned halfway. German reports to higher headquarters stated that the enemy possessed fast turreted vehicles, moving at speeds no tank should reach, while carrying a gun able to kill at 2,000 yards. Requests for heavier flank security and wider march intervals arrived too late. Fuel no longer existed for dispersed movement. American crews reached the opposite conclusion at the same moment. Every Hellcat commander understood their vehicles would disintegrate under one solid hit, yet the Germans never delivered that hit when the M18 kept moving. Doctrine written in 1941 suddenly worked perfectly against late-war German practice, crippled by shortages. The separate Tank Destroyer branch proved it could destroy tanks in large numbers, yet the very success exposed the flaw. Shermans with 76mm guns now matched the Hellcat gun while carrying real armor and infantry support. Battles showed combined arms with fast turreted tanks often performed the same role more flexibly. At Bastogne in January, the last large Hellcat actions drove the lesson home. German commanders finally adapted by refusing road movement in daylight and attempting night infiltration with infantry ahead of tanks. Speed still mattered. Hellcats displaced under fire and reappeared kilometers away before dawn. Yet American staff officers watching the reports decided the specialized destroyer belonged to the past. The vehicle that forced the Panzerwaffe to rewrite tactical assumptions in weeks would itself disappear within months of victory. German elite tankers grasped the full meaning too late. Officers later wrote that they understood what such speed meant only when fuel and reserves were gone. Hellcat crews often displaced several hundred yards between firing positions in under a minute. 1945 to present United States Army, and Historical Assessment M18. Hellcat final production run. Maximum road speed 55 miles per hour sustained. Victory arrived before the last Hellcat ever fired in anger. In November 1945, the Tank Destroyer Center shut forever. Rows of M18 rolled into storage parks and stopped. Tracks locked. Turrets welded. The branch that created them ceased to exist with one quiet memorandum. No new vehicle inherited the concept. The future belonged to heavy tanks that carried thick armor and long guns and fought whatever appeared in front. Captured German files told another truth. Report after report from Lorraine and the Ardennes carried the same frustrated phrase. Fast American tank destroyers struck flanks at speeds no panzer could match and vanished before return fire found the range. German analyses listed these high-speed tank destroyers among the important reasons repeated counterattacks stalled. The lesson reached the surviving tank commanders clearly at last. By then their fuel gauges read empty and no replacement engines crossed the Rhine. The Hellcats themselves disappeared almost as quickly as they had appeared. Korea needed armor plate, not open turrets. Most went to the scrapyard or pulled artillery pieces until they wore out. A few reached museums. Today, only a small number still move under their own power. On rare days, a continental radial coughs alive again, and an 18-ton Ghost sprints across grass at 55 miles per hour, exactly as it did when German crews first looked up in alarm and realized something new and lethal had arrived too late for them to stop. The doctrine was declared obsolete. The branch dissolved. The machine vanished from every inventory. Yet, in the narrow window between September 1944 and May 1945, a lightly armoured gun carrier travelling 55 miles per hour on roads rewrote every assumption the Panzerwaffe carried into the Fächen, west, and left behind only burning hulls and unanswered questions.